Why use Smart Storage Saver? Well, in SharePoint Online, you get 1 terabyte of data plus 10 gigabytes per user. So having 100 users in your tenant gives you 2 terabytes of data. Often that is not enough, and you are facing that you need to buy additional storage. That is expensive. Using Smart Storage Saver, you can take a file and you can split that file into 2 components. One component is the binary content, and that goes into Azure Blob Storage, where the storage costs are very low. And the second component goes into SharePoint as an ordinary SharePoint document library item. Only the item is empty and only has the metadata and the file name. You can offload files during migration, or you can offload files in place. So with your big SharePoint tenant over here, you can split that out so that the file names and metadata for the files goes into SharePoint, and the binary content of the files goes into Azure Blob Storage, and your storage footprint inside SharePoint will be very small. You can also offload during migration from a file share. So again, the items gets created in SharePoint Online with names and all that, and the binary content of the files goes into SharePoint Blob Storage. So at the end of the day, your footprint in SharePoint Online is very, very small. There's no limit to the file size, and all types of files can be imported, and they are streamed directly to Azure Blob Storage. There are 2 options for offloading. One is to offload the entire file, including all versions. And the second option is to keep the current version and only offload the version history. The files remain inside SharePoint. As you can see, the files here have been offloaded, and the size of the file is very, very small. You can see in the comment that originally this file was 3 gigabytes and is now 561 bytes. Also, the version history gets offloaded, and you can see the size of each version is less than 1K. While the files are in SharePoint, you can use all the standard methods of organizing and managing your files. You can apply metadata, you can rename them, move them around, copy them, and so on and so forth. You can restore a file, a folder, or an entire library. You can choose where you want to restore the files. You can do it in place. You can do it to another site, another library. You can do it to a Teams channel. You can even do it to a different tenant. But also, you can restore a file directly to FileShare. You can manage the offload and the restore directly from within Teams or SharePoint. In Teams, there are references to a couple of lists. One is named offload, the other one is named restore. And when you want to offload a file, you simply point to the document library holding the files you want to offload, or to the folder. Notice that you can specify entire file or just the version history and keep the current version. Everything is standard SharePoint and out of the box. You can either create those items manually from SharePoint or from within Teams, or you can do it from a Power App or using Power Automate. The backend executes the jobs defined in Teams or SharePoint. It is a standard server app, and it runs on any Windows server or PC in the cloud or physical, and it runs unattended as a Windows service. It is part of the Smart Migration platform. Let's go to demo. Here in SharePoint, I have some files that I would like to offload. What I'll do is I'll simply just copy the URL and go to Teams. And in my offload list in Teams, I'll create a new item. Notice that you can create new items directly from Teams, from SharePoint, from Power Apps, or using Power Automate. My files and the URL, and I'll just signal that I'm ready to go. You can specify if you want to offload the entire file or keep the current version. Now my job has completed. Let's go to SharePoint and see what happened. This is the files I wanted to offload. Let's hit refresh. Notice that the file size now dropped to 603 bytes, even though it was originally 169 kilobytes. If you have a look at the version history for the file, we will notice that also the versions have been offloaded. Now my storage footprint has been significantly reduced. Let's take a look at where the binary content goes. On my screen I have the Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. This is where I can see the objects that are currently in my blob storage. I have a container named Smart Migration, and it is empty until I refresh it. And here you can see the different files that I have just offloaded. And here they are. So this really demystifies everything because all the binary content is located inside blob storage and I can see it right here. So let's go ahead and open one of the files. Let's open version 4 of the Kayak. Here we go. This is the version where I made some edits. Let's manipulate the offloaded files a little bit. So I will create a folder, my folder, and I'll give it SharePoint Green. Then I will move this file into the folder, and also I will move the Kayak into the folder. In the folder, I'll rename the file. Rename. And on the Kayak, I will create a new version. All right, now I've done a couple of different edits. Okay, let's restore those two files. Again, I'll go to the URL and copy that. Go to Teams, go to the restore list, create a new restore item. And again, I can do this manually like I do now from Power Automate or from Power Apps. My restore and the URL. And I included the general folder and my folder because these are the files I want to restore. Now you can see I can restore them in place, meaning that the files will be restored where they are. But I can also specify that I would like to restore them to a file share. And this is very handy when you want to restore big files, for instance, CAD files and so on. Or you can even restore them to a different SharePoint location, either within the same tenant or in a different tenant. But let's just restore them in place. The restore has now finished. Let's go to SharePoint and see what happened. All right, these are the two files. Let's hit refresh. And it's all restored. Let's have a look at the version history. Restored as well. All right. Well, that concludes my demo of Smart Storage Saver. Thank you.